Okay, here's a quick tutorial on Blackboard regarding our case study orientation. So the first step would be to click on case study orientation on your left. Here we have the window that identifies the case study template. You need to work with your team and determine who is going to be responsible for what section of the case study. Step one, I am going to open up the case study template Word document. Click that here. As you can see, I have Microsoft Word, so my case study will be opening up here under the download button. Might take a few minutes. You can see it's uploading. I'm going to double click and open it. Now, here we have the case study document. So here is where you and your team will type in the name of the student. I would do first name only for purposes of anonymity, and perhaps you can write your name here. Each person that participates in the case study collection will need to create their own case study template. Although you can work with a team, each person has to fill out one of these by themselves. Okay? Here we have the table of contents. This section 1 background. This actually introduces the reader or the folks at the team sort of about the report. It gives a little background. You can include an additional narrative in here. Of course, you can record your name here. This section of student identification is where you type in the basic student information from the student's cumulative folder or the electronic data system that you may have at your school. Over here in this area is where you place the student's name. Perhaps they have a younger sibling. Okay. Perhaps they have an older sibling. This is very important to know the child, the primary child, and then if they have siblings or not. If you do not know the ages or genders of the siblings, you can just record not available at this time, NA. Here we read language learning education program. So there's only so many options. We have the two-way bilingual. We have sheltered English immersion program. We have students who opt out of the ELL programs. We have transitional bilingual ed with a waiver. We have ESL push-in. I just saw an error here. ESL push-in or pull-out, or you can note the other. Typically, the two options would be sheltered English or ESL, push-in or pull-out. You would highlight which one the student is enrolled in, or perhaps you can insert a check or an X here. Okay, so your reason for this report or this referral is, think about why did the team bring this child up, right? A basic caption here, and really think about the tools that you need to use to assess the student. Here, going down to section C, sources of information. At the end of this case study, there's an assessment log. It's sort of a log of all the different tools that you use. It's essential that you list, Dibbles, grade, Woodcock Johnson, any kind of tools that you're using, you list them in the assessment log. Here on section D, the historical review, you really try to get a background on the family history. Okay, do the best you can. There is a little interview guide embedded in this report, but you try to collect as much information about the student as you can, about the student's mother, father, or other people living in the home. This medical section is optional. Perhaps you would work closely with the school nurse, but for the purposes of this practice, this piece is optional. If you do know that the child is receiving some kind of medical care, please write, see student's medical records. you don't want to write anything down if you're not a medical professional. Here, there is a space for students' interest and motivation. In the appendix, there's an electronic link to a student interview. You can fill that out or have one of your colleagues fill it out and share the information. Here's where you can input the student's school history inside the USA and outside of the USA to really summarize how many days present the child was in school. There's also a language learning education history template attached here. And then scrolling down here, we look at instructional materials used in the ELL classroom. So think about it. If the student is in Push-In ESL or SEI, we really want to have a questionnaire for the classroom teacher, sort of what types of services is this kid using? What type of anchor text or curriculum is this student using? Is it geared towards English language development for this student? Here is where one person on your team perhaps could look and collect the WIDA access level scores, MCAS, any other report cards, sort of any other scores you may have available. Underneath, we try to simplify and record any RTI efforts that have been made, but the key piece here is that response to intervention, RTI, really needs to be looked at from the Massachusetts tiered system of support, and it needs to be research-based. You know, a book club not necessarily is RTI. It has to be a really research-based system. In Section 2, for the current student performance, we have sections E, F, G. Here's where in Section E, you describe and record those tools that you're going to use in the appendix again. And then the findings or the results, you're going to put, I started collecting the data in September, and ultimately my case study perhaps will be completed in, I don't know, January, February. Over here we have language factors, English as a new language. Think about the child's language proficiency in English as a new language. Here's where you have to collect at least 2 oral language samples from the student. If it's simply a clip on an iPhone or a recorder or a Chromebook, you simply capture some speech from the student and you assess the student's speech using the solemn rubric, but in a culturally responsive way. And those handouts are embedded in the links here. Just do the best you can. Assessment question 2 talks about the ELD level according to the WIDA speaking rubric. Again, the speaking rubric is attached here. Try to collect another language sample and try to assess that student using the speaking rubric. Just do the best you can. Here, they talked about what the current second stage of second language learning is reached by the student. So you can also look at this handout called Stages of Second Language Acquisition and sort of consult with that chart and really include what stage of second language acquisition you think the child is in. Okay, and then scrolling down, thinking about communication in English. What communication strategies does the student use in English-speaking classrooms? And this is another optional tool. This tool is a family-based observation tool. Again, there's a link here. This is optional. You do not need to do that right now. Then scrolling down, we look at students' writing performance. So there's handouts about students' writing and the cultural factors that influence writing. So try to read these 2 handouts and answer these questions the best that you can. And the same thing is true with students reading in English. Click on these links here and think about the specific linguistic and cultural factors that address students' reading production. Okay, and then the stages of acculturation, we sort of did this in class. Click on this and think about what stage of acculturation is this student in. And then section 3 we'll do in class. So with your team, just try to do as much as you can and try to collect some background data on the student and use this case study template to record the information. Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll be able to get that done. And I guess that's it. That's it for now. Thank you.